So the next 4 steps of 4, 5, 6, and 7, I'm going to talk about just basically consuming content. Okay. So watch things. I always recommend, if you're a beginner, watching cartoons designed for kids because the language used is usually much more simple. And then you can move on to watching films, okay, movies, drama series, because, again, those are areas of interest, and it's usually not too difficult. Reality variety shows and also YouTube, like YouTube vlogs and stuff, are very useful because you get a taste of what language is really like and how it is actually used. So how it's actually used in the context of everyday life. So I highly recommend things like, YouTube and watching vlogs and variety shows. So like for me, I actually learned a lot of Chinese slang by watching like variety shows and even reality shows because, these people are actually using it naturally. It's not scripted or anything. They're using it naturally. And, if I find like a word they're using and I'm not sure about it, research it. Okay, always research. Okay, that's very, very important. Make sure you understand it. Yeah. So again, active and passive learning. So passive learning, just watch it for fun. Active learning, actively listen for things. Practice your pronunciation by imitating the talking. Write down any words you don't know, highlight whatever. Okay, that is also very important. So balance passive and active. Okay, again, with your learning plan, you can think about how you're going to do that. Okay, so, I'm going to do, I guess, Friday night after work, as a celebration, just going to enjoy a movie, not going to bother learning anything, just enjoy a movie. But yes, I highly recommend balance it. Don't skew onto one side, keep it a good balance. The thing is listening to things. Okay, so I have one very, very useful resource to use are podcasts. So some of my students, what they do is actually sleep while listening to a podcast because apparently it helps them, right? So I've never personally tried it, but you could give it a go, right? To just listen to a podcast, just have something playing, the radio, podcasts playing in the background while you're doing stuff. You don't have to actively listen to it. Just by having it there, your brain can absorb like, the accents, pronunciation and stuff like that. Again, active and passive, passively just listen for fun. Active, listen, really listen and retry to understand. Repeat if you must. So a tip that I saw online was listen to the same podcast every day for a week. Apparently that will really help you grasp the language. So you can give it a go. Songs, listen to songs. You'll be surprised that songs and like poems can actually help you. It might be a bit more complicated, the language, but like lyrical studies, if you study the lyrics of a song, would be very helpful for you as well. Obviously, this is for maybe a bit higher level. So, discuss with your teacher. You can do this with your teacher as well. Audio lessons. So there is a website called Pimsleur, and it is very good because they do audio lessons. So they explain things like concepts to you purely through listening. So if you're really busy, okay, or if you are like, have a little bit of time to spare every day, put on an audio lesson. Okay, so like on the way to work, maybe on the just when you're doing chores, when you're doing like taking a shower or something like that. Okay, so these are the times that are very good for audio lessons. So Pimsleur is great. Okay, so if you have the chance to, you can check out Pimsleur. It has tons of languages on there. I'm not sponsored, by the way. I'm just telling you it's a really good resource to use. Okay, so that is the listening to things. Next up, we have reading things. Okay, so reading is very useful because you can take your time to read. You can take as much time you want. You can also take as much time to study and analyze the reading. So it is very, very good. So once again, I will say stick to the easier things first. So children's books, okay, very, very easy to catch up and very easy to actually kind of ease into it. And then you can read things like comics and stuff like that. Let's see. Novels. Novels are actually very good because usually people love reading novels. You can immerse yourself in a fantasy world. Take a break from reality if you must. There's also lots of easy readers out there. So there are lots of like books, like Harry Potter books. I know there's a series. They made a easy read series. So basically, it just makes it easier to read and easier to understand. So they don't use such complicated words, or like it's kind of more condensed. So these are good places to start reading. It doesn't just exist in English. You can have these for lots of other languages, right? So I've actually had a little look online. I saw lots of easy read books for French, for Spanish, for Italian, for German. You even have some in Chinese, Korean, Japanese. There's a lot of these stuff. Okay, so just dig online, have a look. Again, you're bound to find something you're interested in. Or you could also read the translation of a novel that you really like. So, for example, Chinese have so in China, there's a lot of classical novels. So like my favorite is Journey to the West. So obviously that's originally written in Chinese. So, I know the story because I watched it growing up. I actually read the book in Chinese. But like if you want to, for example, if you like you love Harry Potter, try reading it in your target language, right? So, read it in English first of all, and then read it in a target language. And it's very fun to see how things are translated. Yeah, and then you got nonfiction. Okay, might be a little bit hard, but if you specialize in certain field like sciences, reading some nonfiction books on science can really help you. And then also just articles of interest, right? So maybe you're interested in celebrity culture, right? Find some articles, read about that. Next up, we have writing practice. Okay, so having a teacher is very useful here because I find what's very, very helpful is actually writing a piece and then going through it with a teacher. So they can explain to you right there, live, where did you go wrong? How can you improve? And also anything that you need to be taught, right? So like I do that with all my students. Okay, so they do the piece of writing. I go through, what went well, what is wrong, or like, oh, this word is not used in this context, or this context you have to say it like this, or so on. Okay, and tenses as well. In English, you have tenses. So having in a live lesson is very useful to actually go through. So some of my students have requested that from me. Sometimes I do it with my students like that. So you can always do that with your teacher as well. Okay. One thing actually that I found very helpful with learning Chinese was copying out texts. So start with easy text first, and basically just copy out what you're reading, right? So that trains your reading and it trains your writing. So what that does, why that is helpful is that helps you become accustomed to the spelling, or in my case was Chinese strokes. So the spelling, strokes, and even just basic like word order, right? So like just sentence structures, and also some grammar as well. So it might not work for you. It worked for me because if I repeat things often enough, I remember. So you can give it a go. Okay, so copy out texts in your target language. Okay, so it will help you remember spelling and so on. It also helps you get accustomed to like common words. So in Chinese, for example, there are lots of words that I don't often use, right? So even like in spoken language, I don't use it. So these words often don't appear very often in the text. Whereas words like pronouns and like question interrogative words are used very often. So you'll see it very often in the text. And so the more often you see it, the more often you write it, the more able you are to actually spell it correctly. Okay. It also helped me get used to sentence structures and grammar. Okay, so that's very, very helpful if you want to absorb more of the language. Okay. Yeah, and then finally, it also helps you with your handwriting, right? So for me, because I wrote English, and I have to say my handwriting in English is pretty good, right? I'm pretty proud of it. But my Chinese handwriting is absolutely atrocious. Okay, so if I just keep writing, sometimes you don't know what to write. To practice handwriting, just find an article or something and just copy it out, because then you have content to write and you can also improve at the same time.